Welcome to Minneapolis by Night. This is the mage venue side scene for the young Euthanatos Nikolai. He's been spending quite a bit of time in study and training and such with Tertius, who's kind of not necessarily taken him under his wing, but at least offered him some alternative learning experiences. As they both share some shamanistic practices, it was perhaps a little better fit. So the majority of that time has been spent at his chantry, which is also a wellspring and technically actually is an awakened cairn as well. But it's fairly heavily warded. So he's also taught you some of the finer points of his herb skill and such. He grows a number of herbs, does his own brewing and cider, meads, that sort of thing.
All right. So yeah, I guess Nikolai would be at the chantry, kind of probably practicing rituals, most likely.
Perhaps. Tertius kind of takes a little different view because he's a found a lot of the old culture, so he does a lot of the traditional sparring, and he's more of a battle shaman type mentality, but
Mm-hmm.
practicing rituals, sparring, mental exercises. Um, he has a demesne of his own as well that he could take you with mentally and spiritually. But his primary intent is been to show you some alternatives. He recognizes that your mentor up until this point, Alan, had a fairly strong viewpoint on certain matters, but it was also a less commonly accepted and more linear viewpoint, perhaps, of their belief system. Um, One that was used to fuel his personal vendetta as well. And while that viewpoint's not necessarily wrong, it's not the only one. So Tertius personally is acknowledges that the for the great wheel to turn, things have to fit together, just like the teeth of a gear. So sometimes that means someone has to be killed, but sometimes it means someone has to be saved. And for those beings that are completely outside the wheel, then they're, in his mind, typically irrelevant until they start interfering.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of been the attitude he's trying to impart upon you.
Okay.
So I don't know if there's any specific questions you had for him.
Probably
Clear up as well. Okay. Um. Well, this particular evening, he comes down and he's formally dressed, in his like shamanistic garb.
Nikolai kind of looks up what he's doing, kind of surprised.
He says are going to be having a unique visitor to our chantry, as well as to the city.
Uh, who is it?
He would be my mentor.
Oh, uh, is there any etiquette we need to observe?
Well, I would like to at least formally introduce you to him and vice versa. He will be taking Luis's place on the local council, as he is outranks Luis, for lack of better phrasing.
All right.
He may have other opportunities for you as well. Perhaps to do more than simply study in the chantry. He is a bit more of an active member of our tradition, active in the mortal world, I should say. As you know, I spend most of my time dealing with the spirits or living a mundane life, whereas my mentor does not do either one. He has a deeply religious role that he pursues, and in that pursuit fulfills the mission of the Euthanatos.
Nikolai nods.
He will be arriving shortly. I don't know if there's anything you wish to do beforehand, but I think you will find him a fascinating individual as well.
Nikolai nods. And probably goes back to what he's doing, tending to finish his ritual before doing anything else.
Okay. Gotcha. And it'll be a brief time later. You guys will hear a knock at the chantry door, which is uncommon given the number of wards around it. But Tertius opens it, and this gentleman walks in.
Okay.
And he's dressed from the waist down. He's got robes, and he has like a hooded cloak, and there's a raven perched on his shoulder. And he enters. He nods his head. Tertius gives him a semi-formal bow, at least. Not real elaborate, but at least enough to show respect.
Okay. Well, Nikolai would copy Tersus then.
And he'll turn and he'll say, Nikolai, I'd like to introduce you to my mentor, most commonly known as the Ferryman. And you hear the mentor kind of snort, and he says, but his chosen title is Tuani.
It is a pleasure to meet you, sir.
He chuckles and he says, too many damn Greeks in our tradition. There are tales of ferrymen and those who bring the dead. He says, but it's very nice to meet you. And yes, as Tertius mentioned, I prefer to go by Tuani, the name of the god I serve.
Nikolai kind of stutters for a second and then just kind of snaps his mouth shut. Like he kind of was opening and closing his mouth like he was going to say something, but decided not to.
Yeah, Tertius tells me that you've been spending a lot of time with him studying.
That is true.
And while there's something to be said for that, I think learning by doing is also beneficial. I will have, in the coming days and weeks, some contracts that need to be handled in this city. Some of them are mortal, some of them are more than that. when we get to that point, I may call upon you. These are not intended as tests, but as learning opportunities, chances for you to develop.
Nikolai nods.
I do not believe in wasting time with things like tests. You're tested every day when you get up, and you are tested until you lay down again. What good does it do for me to test you when the tests that you set yourself every day are far superior and more accurate? But we have work, and work also allows our tradition to thrive, as well as putting food on the table, nice cars and driveways, those sorts of things.
Nikolai nods, but kind of doesn't. He nods on kind of like a yeah, did you say kind of way. Like he doesn't quite understand, but he's agreeing.
And he looks at you and he says, part of our creed, the part most people are familiar with, is that there are those that need to be helped through the cycle, and it is our place to do so, to ensure that the wheel continues to turn, that the spirits go to whatever heaven or hell they are destined for until they are born again. The part that most people don't know is that when we're hired for this, we are often hired not by some grand fate, but by other mortals. And thus we have those like Tertius who are skilled in scrying and in the viewing of the threads of fate to help us assess whether this mortal contract is in accordance with the wheel. If it is, we get the opportunity to collect twice. Once from fate for helping move it forward, and once from whatever mortal contractor hired us for doing their dirty work.
All right, I think I understand.
We do not work with pleasant people very often, but there are times where those we deal with are reasonable, and indeed there's times where we in fact deal with people of honestly what I would consider goodness. I've one of the matters in this city is that I was called here by the head of the choristers because he has an issue with a member of the church that he does not know if he can bureaucratically resolve.
Sounds like a chorister problem for certain. Is this why you were? So this is sort of like a contract, perhaps.
It has the potential to become one. What has been happening in the city was sufficient enough to warrant having a individual of more traditional viewpoints seated among the council. Luis is very skilled at what he does, but unfortunately his viewpoints tend to be a bit too modern and perhaps almost enlightened as opposed to our traditional awakenings. So he thought it prudent to have someone make a clearer presentation of what the Euthanatos are.
Nikolai nods. He kind of fidgets a little, but doesn't. He seems very uneasy, but just more so out of nervousness than anything else.
He and the Tertius says, well, that's enough formality if we're going to be coexisting here, living together, and indeed interacting. We might as well enjoy ourselves. He pulls out a couple of glasses and pulls out a batch of mead. You would know that this is actually mead. He uses the water from the spring in the cairn to craft.
Okay. Which means it's the good stuff.
He pours a couple drinks, pulls up some. He's got like a hand carved table,
Okay.
and he chuckles and he says, he looks at you and he looks at Tuani and he says, "It'll make it a real interesting night." And he pulls out some dice. He says, I think being individuals that watch the threads of fate, weave them, play with them, I think dice would be no problem, right? Till you get a couple of us together.
Nikolai nods. His eyes are already on the dice.
He'll sets out the dice and asks, you guys want to play all night? You have anything else you want to do? But then he throws the dice. And I suppose dice stream would help here. Or I'll just be retarded and apparently lose dice stream. I hate when dice stream doesn't show up. And I don't get dice stream. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll just use a dice roller. He throws the dice so, and they're kind of gambling back and forth, and you can tell even just your mundane perceptions. It's obvious that something's funny because the guy will be almost ready to roll over and rock back to where it needs to be for a winning hand, or vice versa. It always seems to hinge right on that last die. And it always seems to fall. It's either going to be phenomenal or horrible. And as they're drinking and chuckling, and of course you're welcome to jump into the game if you want as well. But Kwani looks at you and he says, "It might all be in great fun now, this manipulation of fate." He says, "But consider the possibility that someone equally skilled in fate opposes you. And it's not a game of dice, but a gunfight instead. When it's your will opposed to theirs, and the question is whether that bullet glances off a rib or pierces your heart, it's a simple matter. But the time to learn those skills and practice them, to develop those abilities until they are automatic to you, is not in the middle of that fight. It's here, having a few drinks around a table with fellows who understand.
Yes. So Nikolai will sit. He'll sit for a minute, see how the like try and figure out the like the game that they're playing, like the rules and stuff.
Yeah, and it's nothing real complicated. It's it's basically a like a poker rules, but with dice. Straights, full house, that sort of thing.
Mm. So yeah, he'll jump in.
Okay. What is
And that's actually his entropy foci, our dice.
okay? Perfect. So he will have a real easy time here.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't. What is your RSA offhand? Or do you have a dice roller handy? Otherwise, I can use mine.
And it's probably easier anyways,
Yeah, I'll
for
just use.
posterity's sake.
Well, I can't get Dice Stream to cooperate, so I'm doing everything's happening off scene. So our first couple of rolls, you're getting a feel for it, but as you get into it, you start to kind of sense exactly what they're doing, and you really start to get a feel and get involved, and indeed even start winning a reasonable amount of time. Actually, it's almost seems close to balanced between the three of you. That and then of course, it's a couple rounds. You start drinking, you get into it, but Tertius informs you that if you wish to explore the city, there is a number of things happening, and of course, you're welcome to do so. That they'll potentially have some contracts and opportunities. But
So he can,
you're cutting out pretty bad.
and I stopped so you could
Okay.
finish what you were saying.
No, that was it. Just that there's been a lot going on in the city, so if you wanna get out and get involved, you're certainly welcome to, and that they'll potentially have some substantial contracts in the near future that will give you opportunities to perhaps expand yourself financially.
So he'll thank them, and he'll actually and he's finding the this hub place that he's been.
All right, so you're gonna head out and check out the hub.
Mm-hmm.
It's not too hard to find. You've heard about it more than once. And in fact, as you get near, you'll start to sense the energy there as well. But it's a intersection, and it's kind of on the edges of like the rural area. So there's residential, but it's smaller businesses, older part of town, and a lot of it's been run down. But it looks like maybe some efforts are being made to start cleaning up. They've got some dumpsters that have, kind of been set along one side of the road to be picked up, and people have been picking up trash in the area. There's some of the buildings are roped off and stuff that they with construction tape that they're undergoing some repairs and such.
Okay. Well, he'll kind of just head in and check it out, I guess.
Give me a perception awareness, like however many dice that is, and I'll roll it for you.
It is 5 dice.
I'm not used to having players that actually have perception skills. It's been kind of weird lately. So with 3 successes, you can tell that right at the center of this intersection where these two streets cross is actually like the heart of this node. Like you can just feel the energy radiating. And there's actually a sense of order and nobility kind of radiating from this, like a sense of community, structure, leadership, that sort of thing.
All right. So this is he'll kind of head towards the center of the node, kind of curiously.
Okay.
And when he gets like close to it, he'll activate his prime sight. So he'll reach into his jacket and kind of just run his thumb over one of his pistols to help facilitate it, because that's his prime foci.
All right, RT of 3, correct?
Yes, sir.
Ten and 8, so you're in a 5, so it certainly comes up because prime sight is not difficult.
Okay. So yeah, once he gets his prime sight up, he'd be primarily inspecting the node, but also kind of checking out the buildings with the prime sight to see if there's anything funky with them.
Not really. You can see that there's still some residual elements of this node having had at some point a lot of negativity, a lot of pain and suffering and stuff. But the recently, it's obviously been a lot of that has been scoured away, and there's a sense that someone with capability and leadership is taking an interest here.
Okay.
As far as the area, you can see that there's one of the buildings. It looks like a lot. There's some kids playing, and there's a lot of. Actually, it looks like they're having a cookout, and it's a bunch of Latino folks, sitting out in front of the building. And there's also a what looks to be a Catholic priest there, enjoying the cookout with them.
Okay. With prime sight up, do any of them have quintessence in them?
No.
Okay. Well, at that point, he's just kind of he'll keep an eye on him, but he's not going to approach him.
Yeah, it seems like it. It seems like what you found here is that this place obviously once was a bad place, and concentration of suffering and unhappiness, but that recently someone or something has taken interest and gotten involved and caused this to be a start turning around. Whether it continues or not is hard to say, but it looks like that's kind of where things are at now.
Okay.
Which really, for what you had heard from the city, is a big change. Most of the problems in the city were always negative. Everything's getting worse type thing.
Okay, so after he kind of figures that out, he'll pretty much leave because he found out what he needed to find out. So
Okay. Yeah, and you can tell there has been mages passing through there, but doesn't appear there's any present right now.
okay. Was there anything when he was going through that kind of would make it seem like it was claimed like the node was claimed?
Yeah, a little bit, and in fact, there's some of the you'd recognize the name on some of the permits and stuff that are up for construction. That it's being funded by, or at least partially funded by, Luis Esteban, he's one of the higher euthanatos.
Okay. So that kind of eliminates the line of thinking there. Who was going to say, "Hey, we should turn this into a Thanatos chantry," because it's kind of already got the leftover emotions that we can work on cleansing. But
there's obviously some other elements occurring, but it's Luis looks at least to be the money behind the process, although it seems like perhaps other mages are involved as well.
okay.
So
Yeah, after that, he'll kind of head off into the city.
okay.
He's not really looking for anything in specific. He's just kind of wondering.
Okay, just checking out the town and that sort of thing.
Yes. Seeing if anything interesting is going on.
Well, you would have been warned by Tertius that there are heavily armored. Well, you were there, I believe. There are armored anti-terror units that apparently are capable of removing avatars.
Okay.
And in fact, they have done so to one of the Thanatos so far.
Okay, well, that actually, after that, then he would go back and head back to the chantry. Yeah, with that information, he would head back to the chantry.
Yeah, I mean, typically you can know they're coming in time, but just to be aware of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's pretty much just going to head back to the Thanatos chantry.
Okay. Which for the most part is Tertius's place. They don't have a formal one for all the Thanatos, but generally that's the one place you can find at least one of them. So
okay. So,
and when you get back,
I think that's pretty much.
Tertius does have some contact
Sorry, I didn't
information
mean to.
for you for a couple of other some of the other new mages that have been involved in the Green Dragon Chantry. He's got some contact information in case you didn't have any to get you in touch with those mages as well.
So, yeah, he'll contact information and do his thing with his ring, where he turns it into binds it in that. He's pretty much done. He's pretty much going to work on some more concrete rituals before he goes at risk of these things running around, these machines.
Okay. Alrighty. So you can get some rituals, maybe work on some of those reflexive rotes, get some of that formulated a little bit more.
It's pretty much what he's going to be doing.
All right. Well, unless you have anything else specific, we can wrap that up here.
Okay.
All right. Well, then, thank you all for watching. This has been another Minneapolis by Night Mage Scene. And stay tuned for more shortly.